What's up, everybody? Welcome to the second live stream episode at Sales Remastered. I appreciate you of those who are here on time, and I definitely got some real exciting plan for the next 30 minutes that you're going to share with me on this live stream. You know, it being our second time, I'm sure that this session will get more acknowledgement and get more awareness. And if you find value in this live stream and the nuggets that you pull away from this short training session, that's not just about sales techniques, but also about mindset development. I ask that you share it with your team, share it with a loan officer, share it with someone who you know who could also find value within the lessons that I share here. A little something about myself for those of you who are new to the channel or maybe came across the recognition through like LinkedIn. You may not have followed much of my content or know too much about the channel as a whole. But I myself, my name is Daniel Niekart, and I currently am a sales manager, but I also sell. So I offer a unique perspective of actually doing what you do. And so what that means is that the information and the techniques and these little mindset hacks that I like to call them that I share with you are relevant. They're current. It's not like a sales manager who hasn't sold in a while, or like a sales trainer who hasn't sold in a while or hasn't sold period is giving you or sharing this information with you. Although there are great managers and great sales trainers, I offer a different perspective, a unique position where I can tell you how it is currently right now because I'm in the trenches with you. And so, you're able to comment in the comment box below. You can actually see your comments come up. I'll see your comments come up. So at any point in time, feel free to leave a comment. And more importantly, again, like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you hit that little notification bell, you're going to be notified of any uploads that I have. I have a real exciting upload that I just made this morning before this session, and it's called 3 Traits of Successful People. And I'm actually going to lean on one of those traits in this training session because I think it's important. Not only that, but I also think that it's relevant, especially in the market that we're in and the current position that we're in. What I'm going to cover is again, not only sales techniques that are going to help you sell more units and sell more loans, but also give you certain hacks to look at your game and look at your day-to-day action. Some people call it the grind. In a different light, in a different way. A lot of the information I'm going to share with you is not being preached by sales trainers or sales managers that you may follow or you may listen to or you may even consider your guide or mentor. So I hope to give you a different view at the day-to-day functions and actions that you're relying on to determine your outcome or determine the results of the efforts that you put in every single day. So obviously today is the 27th of September. It's month end, and so I appreciate the time that you're sharing with me. If anything, the lessons that you're going to learn, you're going to be able to invest in yourself by executing on these strategies and these techniques, and go into October with just like a new way of seeing things. And I think that it's important to realize that anytime you go into month end, what most salesmen do is we actually slow down on sales origination because we find ourselves tending to the pipeline and more or less babysitting the process to ensure that every single unit goes through, whether it's because we really need that tier or because we really are counting on that funding, or maybe some of us are guilty, and I've been guilty of it too. We've spent the money that we haven't yet made. And so we find ourselves in this real delicate spot where we kind of have to weigh our options of putting where do we divide our focus, where do we disperse our attention and our efforts. And so I find a lot of times that salesmen will ease up on the origination portion of their day and mainly focus on the babysitting portion. When I say babysitting, I'm talking about you're all over your pipeline, making sure every single thing happens, making sure the loan is in line to fund. And there's nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, we have to understand that what we do now is going to determine the momentum that we go into the next month. And see, as we go into October, we find ourselves going into what's typically known as the slowest part of the year because we have 2 holidays that are coming up, right? We have Thanksgiving and then we have Christmas. And sometimes that can really affect our pocketbook because people just start to mentally check out. And when I say people, I'm talking about both salesmen and also consumers, where consumers are starting to give excuses like, oh, I'll just handle it after the holidays, right? The closer you get to Christmas, people will be like, oh, you know what, I'll just handle it after New Year's. And it's human nature to procrastinate because ultimately it's the path of least resistance, meaning that they don't have, our consumers, they have that same issue or challenge every day of where do they disperse and focus their time and their energy. And so what we want to do, at least going away from this training session, is understand that you are in direct control of the outcome that you're going to have this holiday season. Let me back up. What you do now and how you go into any month, not just the holiday months, but every single month, is going to determine where you're going to be at month end. And so, for example, just as I had mentioned, there are loan officers right now who are babysitting their pipeline because they need every single loan to go through. Where if we backed up and really analyzed the situation, a lot of the steps that we're waiting for or we're now handling at month end could actually have been done at the very early part of the month, right? Because we could have planned, knowing that we're going into the last week of the month, that everything is buttoned up so that we're not diverted away or attention is not pulled away to do things that we could have handled a week or 2 weeks ago. So it's basically just a raw suggestion of really being prepared and really being conscious over your actions of what you're doing. So anyway, I don't want to say too much cliche things and obviously give you some information that you probably already know, and it's definitely good practice to do. But what I do want to share with you is how we are ultimately affected, usually around this time of the month, at month end, and then going into the next month. And those things are particularly have to do with our momentum. Every single day, I believe, and I'm a firm believer, and I learned this from my own mentor, that there are two forms of momentum. There is positive momentum, and then there is negative momentum. And every single day, we're going to find ourselves on one of the two. There's just no way around it. And you're on the negative momentum because things just don't go right for you, right? Like there's just fire after fire after fire. And you'll know that you're on the good momentum because you're confident. There's this pep in your step. You got like this little swagger to you. Your spirits are high. You're more about giving than you are about worrying, if that makes sense. And so what I hope to do is share with you these little mindset hacks that my mentor taught me in order to actually control that momentum. And it really does have to do with being prepared and understanding that the challenges that you go through every single day are basic challenges that we as salesmen face every single day. And so if we know that we're going to face it again tomorrow and the next day and the next week and the next month, it would actually be in our best advantage to take the right steps now to ensure that what we go through next week is actually in our favor. And this is how you create that positive momentum. But ultimately where it comes down to is really the attitude. There's this saying that I had on one of my IG posts, my Instagram posts, which if you haven't followed me yet on Instagram, check me out. If you're on Instagram, just search Sales Remastered and you'll find my profile page. And I have a ton of real helpful motivational content that's just not about mindset hacks, just not about these little short video clips that help you kind of improve your sales techniques or your negotiation techniques, but also point out things that I know for certain are not being pointed out because I study my craft, I study my art, and I don't see this content being given out anywhere else. But you're gonna find it here at Sales Remastered. And there's this one post where I said, the likelihood of you getting the sales not based on the attitude of your prospect, it's actually based on the attitude of the salesman. And what I mean by that is maybe you could relate with me. When we get connected to some prospects, sometimes we can be connected with these negative Nancy's, right? I like to call them negative Nancy's because they're just negative, they're defensive, they're rude, right? And as humans, when we engage with someone who is negative, we ultimately will respond in that negative way as well. We'll react negatively as well, right? And so what I want to do is I want us to really analyze that, assess that, and I'm going to ask you to do something in this session and moving forward is really be self-aware. Be aware of how you react to certain things. Like when your prospects call, when you're connected with someone who's just rude and doesn't want to talk to you or maybe talks over you, how do you respond? Do you respond in a way where you're empathetic and you understand your positioning? Because if you bounce back in a negative way, no matter how good that jab feels, like you can make them feel real small, and it'll probably make you feel good at that time. But at the end of the day, if that person and you don't mesh well, and you're not able to walk away from that engagement with a sale, or at least plant the seeds to create a sale in the future, who really won? Right? You lost on an opportunity to make a sale, but more importantly, your company lost on the marketing money spent to create that connection. And so my suggestion is that when you engage with your prospects, understand that it's not them, it's not you, right? Their attitude towards you, them being negative towards you, has nothing to do with you. You're not the reason why they're negative. Most of the time, prospects will engage negatively towards salesmen because it's their defense mechanism. It's them trying to kind of give off this bravado that you can't take advantage of them. And what I have found is most of the time it's those negative Nancy's that are actually the easiest ones to sell. But here's the challenge, and I hope you take it as a challenge, a fun challenge, and I hope you look at it as a game where if you engage with someone who's negative and pushing at you in a negative way, could bounce back in a way that they would not expect. Meaning, show empathy, right? Understand that when they come off to you in a rude manner, be nice to them, because human nature, again, when you communicate with someone and they're not on that wavelength, like if you've ever been mad at somebody and that person didn't know that you're mad and they probably didn't realize that they did something wrong, you'll ease up, right? So that's where I mean by like having empathy and being self-aware, is that understand that they don't necessarily mean to be rude to you. They're just protecting themselves, and we can't necessarily hate on them for protecting themselves, because that's ultimately what we do. That's the whole reason why you're joining this session right now, is to protect yourself from failure, is to protect yourself from rejection. And so I believe that a lot of it has to do with the attitude of the salesman and how we actually initiate the engagement. Let me give you another example. If you're having a tough time with generating sales, a lot of times it's because you're unable to capture the attention, meaning you're not necessarily engaging with that prospect in a way where you can discover their why. You know, in the last week's live session, for those of you who caught it, you know, I talked about discovering the emotional why. And it becomes a challenge for salesmen to discover this emotional why. And when I say emotional why, it's basically the reason why they need the lower rate. It's the reason why they don't want to pay fees. It's the reason why they're rude. And if you don't have the positioning or the ability to position yourself to discover their true, real reasons why, it's going to make the sales engagement just that much more of a challenge, because you have no leverage. And you need to understand their why, because if you speak to them and give information that's applicable to them, then you're not able to capture the attention. And of course, you need their attention and their full compliance in order to properly sell them. Does that make sense? So if you think about it, when you're like, if you're watching TV and you see a commercial that simply does not apply to you, what do? You kind of mute it out, right? If anything, you fast forward and you move on to the next session. If anything, you're probably like me, you fast forward through the commercial, right? The reason for that is because it's not applicable to you at that moment. It doesn't apply to you. It's not speaking to you. If anything, we avoid those little commercials because we're protecting our time. And so a lot of times when these prospects come in and they tell you, before I answer any of your questions, you know, I don't want to answer any of your questions. Just tell me, what's your lowest rate? Or can you give me every service under the sun and just not charge me a dime? You and I know, because we work in this industry, those are outlandish requests, right? Like, what company works for free, bro? But we have to show empathy. We have to be empathetic and understand that they're actually just talking from a position of not being aware. But more importantly, when we discover this is our opportunity to position ourselves as the professional, is to position ourselves as a consultant. But more importantly, understand why they're acting that way. And a lot of times it's because they're trying to protect their time. They're trying to protect their status, right? And so when we engage with these individuals, whether they're negative or they're positive or what have you, the same thing applies in any engagement. I had this direct message from one of my followers on Instagram, asked me, do I switch up my sales approach or my script depending on the lead source? To some degree, I do, depending if it's an inbound or outbound. But ultimately, the message is always the same. And if you haven't downloaded a copy of the sales script, I'll leave a link below this video so you can get your hands on a copy of it. And I strongly urge you to really study that sales script and understand why it works. And the reason why it works is because one of the very first sentences that I say to the prospect is, okay, well, let me make sure I can move forward with this phone conversation. Before I go any further, I'm going to ask a few basic questions to make sure I can help you. If I can't, I'm going to point you in the right direction. But if I can, I'm going to show you exactly what I can do. You see, I don't think salespeople do that right when they first engage. But what I do know is that most salesmen will pick up the phone and say, hey, this is Daniel. It's a great day at my company. How can I help you? And the problem with that is, though, is that when you ask them how you can help them, you're basically asking someone who doesn't know what to say. And so the very first thing that they're going to say is, well, what's your rate or what's your fee? And this kind of changes the course of our engagement, because now it's just all focused on rate and fees. And then, of course, this can sometimes be counterproductive towards our own attitude and our own momentum. And this is where that negative momentum begins. But mind you, you have a choice of that momentum. You can create a positive momentum, meaning you can get everything that you want from this prospect. You can get the entire reasons of their why. You can get the full attention of that you need in order to sell them. But more importantly, you could build the curiosity. You could build the anticipation. And so the sales script does that. If you haven't been to salesyourmaster.com, again, I'll leave a link below this video. Download a copy of that sales script. If you do request a copy, use your primary email address, and email address you get on your phone. I wouldn't suggest you print it because a lot of the ink would probably delete your ink cartridge. But the reason why you want to use your primary email address is because sometimes your work email address is going to quarantine. It's going to shoot it back. But I really want you to get a copy of that sales script. It's not only helped me, but it's helped thousands of loan officers that follow the channel and follow the brand engage properly, and it works very well. And the reason why it works, here's the primary reason, is because you're not asking them what they want. You're not asking them how you can help them. And the reason why that's effective is because, as I just mentioned, the cycle that we go through every single day, from origination to processing to closing to selling, it's cyclical. It just happens all the time. It happens every single time. And what we should know is ultimately what these objections will be coming up, right? Because we go through it so many times, we become aware. And ultimately what that script does is it addresses every single objection right away. And that's what I hope to do and share with you on the content that I give, whether it's on Facebook or YouTube or Instagram, is to give you that upper hand, is to give you that advantage of properly positioning yourself. Another thing that my mentor taught me was that in order to succeed, you need to put yourself in the best position to succeed. And that applies to literally anything and everything in life, right? Not just sales. But let me go back again, going back to the attitude. I think that when we engage in our originations, sometimes external things will determine our attitude when we engage with these prospects. Let me give you an example. So like right now at month end, if you found out that a deal came in and let's say the value came in short, or you had a borrower rescind, and I hope that never happens to you, but ultimately it will happen. Or you have someone who was supposed to fund today and they can't fund today and they keep sweating you and calling you. Ultimately what we do is we sometimes bring that in because it affects us, right? It affects our mindset. And so when we try to juggle the pipeline management along with origination, sometimes what we don't realize is that those external things or those facts ultimately come in with us. And so we become so busy where when we engage in our origination period or origination times, we bring that in with us. It's kind of like luggage. And so we'll engage with this person with the sense of being in a rush, right? We'll engage with this person of kind of being down because we just got bad news. And so the challenge is, well, how do you forget all that and then engage with this prospect as if they're the only person? Well, the answer is this: is that the whole point of engaging in origination and actually talking to a person, a new lead, is to create a sale, is it not? But sometimes we become so caught up in the process where we forget that selling is actually serving. And so what we do is we go into the engagement just really primarily about us, right? Like, let me prove it to you. So when we go into an engagement, if we have tons of things on our calendar, we're rushing through that conversation sometimes, right? We're going straight to pricing. If anything, we're looking for reasons to end that conversation. The slightest hint of them being rude will spark right back at them because it's natural. So there's nothing wrong, with you. I mean, you're not. It's just how we respond. It's how we react. But ultimately, until you can control that emotion and until you have full control, like there's a saying, it says that a master salesman is a master of everybody because they're a master of themselves. Took me forever and a day to really realize what the hell that meant. But ultimately, what it means is you are able to influence and persuade other people because you know how to influence and persuade yourself. Does that make sense? So you have full control over your emotions to where it like a snap of your fingers, you can quickly put on a different hat. You can quickly change your attitude and your focus. Whereas if you're trying to juggle a lot of different things, you're not necessarily a master of your emotions. You're wearing your emotions or your heart on the sleeve, as they say, right? Where you could tell, like if you've ever talked to somebody, and it could have been at maybe a retail store or someone that you talked to on the phone, and you clearly know that they don't like their job. Like they just clearly don't want to be at work that day. And I want you to think about how is it, like, how do you feel, right, when you engage with that person? It kind of sucks, right? Like there's nothing that you want to do besides get off the phone with that person. If anything, you will actually judge that company based on your experience of that negative Nelly that you just talked to. And here's the thing though, is that when us as consumers or even us as salesmen, when we become a master of our own emotions, we get the upper hand over people because we understand the emotions of ourselves. So therefore we understand the emotions of others. And so going back to understanding these little nuances or these little hacks about attitude, I promise you, if you switch your attitude from focusing just on yourself when you're engaging with a prospect for the first time, and you make it so that they know and they feel that the engagement is about them, it's serving them, then you're going to get the upper hand. The reason why the script works is because I'm alluding to the fact that it's based on helping them. So it's based on giving information that's applicable to them. The wording even says it. So if you pull up the script, for those of you who's already used it and those of you who mastered it, you've already seen the return on it, right? So one of the main sentences is saying that, hey, before I move any further, I'm going to ask you a few basic questions, and this is going to let me know if I can move forward. I've already addressed the concern of them wasting time. More importantly, I've addressed their concern of me asking for private information that no one really wants to give. Basic questions. And ultimately what this does is it allows me to capture the attention just that much more further. But if I'm bringing in luggage from a fire that I just had to put out, or if I'm bringing in emotions from a processor that I'm really frustrated with, or my manager that I'm really frustrated with, and I'm actually taking it out on that prospect, no one is going to win, bro. No one is going to actually walk away from that engagement, feeling good. And ultimately, how you make a sale, like there's a lot of advice being given right now. Like you got to ask for the sale 7 times, or you got to give 19 follow-ups in order to make a sale. The average consumer, you have to call back 99 times in order to make a sale. Me personally, call me lazy, but I'm trying to become so efficient where I don't even need to ask for the sale. I want them to give me the sale. So imagine if you can position yourself to do that, where they want to give you the business, then how would that make you feel? You see, that's actually something that I share on my course. But again, if you haven't been to salesremastered.com, there's this course that I have available, and it's called Banker's Formula to Six Figures. And what it is it's just that. It's showing you everything that is required in order to build yourself a system to become a successful loan officer. It's not just about sales. It's not just about sales script, not just about objections and rebuttals. Although it does cover that, it covers everything from how to engage with your support roles, how to There's even a bonus module that tells you how to position yourself to fast track yourself to a sales manager if that's ultimately what you want to be. But it literally covers everything. So it's a full spectrum sales course that teaches you how to create a formula that will put you into six figures. So the point is, though, is that without understanding how you're positioning yourself, you can either create a negative momentum that's just going to give you more resistance, and typically you're creating this negative momentum by jumping right into pricing or asking them, well, what's your rate? Right? Because tell me if this is true. When someone calls in and they say, you ask them like, hey, how can I help you? And they tell you, I just want a lower rate. What is our response? Our common response is, okay, well, what kind of rate do you have? Or what rate do you have? And they tell you anything that's below 4.5. Do you not sometimes get kind of demotivated, right? It's almost like, this person's probably not going to buy. That is your attitude. But more importantly, you're focusing on yourself. You're not necessarily focusing on them. And so my challenge for you today is not only really pay attention to your attitude of how you're engaging with your process, because that engagement, that very first 30 seconds or a minute is going to determine whether or not you need to chase them 17 times on a follow-up, whether or not you need to ask them 19 times to make the sale. I want to show you how to make your pitch in a way where you don't even ask for the sale. They want to give it to you, right? For the students who've already enrolled, and I have about 130 students already who've taken the course, the Banker's Formula Six Figures, you have to see these testimonials. You have to see these emails. And I'm going to make a video where it's just all that, where they're saying, Daniel, man, I had the toughest time in gaining the momentum. I had the toughest time in selling the rates because I work for a retail company where we just have high rates. We have high fees, and I was always getting shot. And for them to tell me because of my course, they were able to increase their production by 20%. Some of them even got up to the top 3 agents of their company. And so there are not too many resources that you can actually invest in that pays for itself again and again and again and again. And so that's why I appreciate your attention, is because you've made time to study your craft. You've taken some time with me today to really understand how to improve these little facets that are not being covered elsewhere. Like, who tells you that you shouldn't have to call people 19 times on a follow? Everyone's telling you that because it's general information. But really, that just applies to people who don't necessarily understand the art of selling. Like, if you catch yourself chasing people and you find yourself you have to give 7 follow-up calls, in my opinion, I think that's, in my opinion, I think you're doing it wrong right from the very beginning. So as I mentioned before, if you properly prepare and understand how you position yourself within the engagement, you can actually avoid the chasing. You can avoid the need to ask for the sale. You can even avoid the need to do more than a couple follow-up calls. Follow-up calls are still important because there's going to be certain instances where you just have to follow up. But the point is, though, is that when you get into engagement where you have to sell somebody, I want to leave you with this. Understand that selling is really serving. Okay, if you really understand that, selling is all about serving. Selling is not all about like, hey, we got the lowest rate, we got the lowest fees. That's not selling. That's marketing. Marketing, selling, and closing. These are 3 different components. You have to understand why they're different, because a lot of times we don't know the formula to put them in. We don't know the sequential order that they go in. And so sometimes we sell too soon or we sell too late, right? We try to close too soon and then we market afterwards. So until you understand the formula, until you understand the sequential order of how you're actually supposed to deliver the message, there's going to be resistance. There's going to be objections. There's going to be the need to ask 9 times for the sale or do 18 follow-ups before you get a yes. And most of the time, correct me if I'm wrong, most of the time, all those follow-ups, they just become unanswered voicemails, right? So if you want to know how to leave a voicemail on that point, because we do have to do follow-up calls. At the end of the day, it's still healthy to do follow-up calls. Just don't ever catch yourself doing more than 8 or more than, in my opinion, more than 3. Like, if you're chasing somebody that hard in order to convince them that the sky is blue and they're not giving you the time of day, you're actually missing out on opportunity to meet someone that will give you the time of day. At the same time, I'm telling you that selling is all about serving. You need to serve yourself too. You need to serve yourself with the proper respect of your time. You need to serve yourself with the proper appreciation of your efforts. So if you go out of your way to present this amazing pitch because you learned how to do the sequential order through the course at salesremastered.com, which is the banker's formula to six figures, you'll have a perfect formula to present your presentation to where if they still say no, or if they are not giving you the time of day, don't change your process. Like still, you still have to fine tune it. You still have to perfect it, right? But if you stay close to Sales Remastered, you watch the content, you watch all the available videos that I'm uploading pretty much every day, and you understand the reasons why it works, you're going to be able to position yourself properly to avoid a lot of the resistance that cause loan officers to jump ship. That cause loan officers to go from one employer to one employer to one employer to one employer within the span of a year. Like, you got 9 employers, bro, in the last 12 months. And I don't ever want to see you have to go down that road, especially if you're taking the time to study your craft. What I do hope to give you are the tools and the advice that you need that you simply are not getting. So if you don't have a mentor right now, if you don't have a guide, if you don't have information that is applicable to your sales skill, like if you go follow Grant Cardone, no disrespect against that man is doing it. But man, I mean, he's talking about investing $100,000 in real estate. Although it's cool and everything, his lessons are no longer necessarily applicable to you. This guy, used to be a car salesman. But if you find an influencer that's speaking your language and can relate with you on that level, take that information, use it to your advantage, and do the absolute most that you can from the information that you gather, right? Whether it's here at Sales Remastered or another influencer that you find, challenge yourself to constantly learn and constantly improve your craft. And I hope that the lessons that I've shared with you today are very helpful. I've just reached my 32-minute mark, and I know a lot of you guys are busy, so I do appreciate your guys' time. Comment below. Let me know what your takeaway was today in the comments. Please subscribe and share. Share this channel with your sales team. Share it with other individuals who are like-minded like you, loan officers or customer service agents that are in the process of trying to get their NMLS license. And I want to assure you that it's not a bad time to be a loan officer right now. If anything, it's actually a good time to be a loan officer, because it's weeding out the loan officers. Like, there's a lot of people who were licensed last year who are not going to be licensed this year. A lot of people jump ship, change industry, went to work for someone else, and just completely quit the game. And what that means for us is just less noise. It's just less competition. But if you understand how to really refine your skills and you follow the content that I share with you here, regardless of what your price is, regardless of what your rate and what your fees are, I promise you, you're still going to generate the business that you need to earn the income that you were earning or you saw earn a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And I know this because my team is doing it right now. I'm doing it right now. And so if I could show you what these little cheat codes are, what these little hacks are through the content I serve, then use it. That's all I ask. Use it, be happy, and be well. I appreciate all you guys' time. Thank you very much. Don't forget to subscribe to the next event, which will be next Thursday from 8:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Get your whole team, get your squad, get your camp, get your family on. Join me. And more importantly, help me spread the awareness of the brand. Go to salesremastered.com, download a copy of the script, and check out the banker's formula to six figures. I'll see you guys on the next one. Have a good day. Bye.